You've spent years learning the tarot, practicing on friends and family. Everyone says you're really good and you should go professional, and you're feeling ready for it. But how do you get started? I mean, it's not like you can send a resume to a recruiter. Well, in this video, I'm going to give you some tips to help you get started as a professional tarot reader and give you some advice that you might want to know before you actually get started. Hello, I'm Wendy, Rapp, spiritual life coach and psychic tarot reader. On this channel, I help you as a spiritually awakened person grow and evolve on your soul's journey. And if you enjoy material like this, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next upload. Before you start doing readings professionally, there are a few things you're going to want to think about. First, what is it exactly that you're offering? And how are you going to do the readings? Phone, Skype, Zoom, email? I'll get more into that a little later in the video. Will you specialize in a certain topic? Love, relationships, career, finances, health? What about the length of the readings? 10, 15, 20-minute increments? And what will you charge for each time increment? Should you limit the amount of questions or topics that a client will ask? And that's something that's really good to keep in mind, especially if you do an email reading. You might want to limit the questions to 1 or 2 questions or 1 or 2 topics. And always keep in mind, people do have follow-up questions. Whenever you answer the original question, it always raises a dozen more in their mind. So it's good to always allow for at least 1 follow-up question. If you're going to allow for more than 1 follow-up question, especially if you're doing this by email, then are you going to charge a specific amount for each follow-up question? And that brings us to payments. You need to have a set price for your readings, for your clients, and then a way of collecting that payment from them. And that's especially important if you're doing email readings or phone readings. If you plan on doing in-person readings and you only want to collect cash, you need to make that 100% clear to your client before they arrive for their appointment. And a word of caution, be really careful about accepting checks from a client, unless it's somebody you know and you know very well and you trust them. But be really careful with checks. Now, if someone insists on paying you with a check, then let them know that they're going to have to mail that check to you ahead of time so that you will have time to deposit it and clear it with the bank before they arrive. I've been burned that way, so I'm passing on that word of caution to you. Be very careful about accepting checks. For accepting payments by credit card or debit card, I'd recommend something like PayPal or Square. Those are 2 that I use. I've never had a problem with either one of them. Some people use Venmo. That works as well. If a client comes in and they want to pay cash, make sure you have change on hand, because sometimes you get the larger bills and you're going to need to be able to give your client change. So just keep that in mind as well. Another thing you're going to want to think about is, when is payment due? Now, if you're doing a reading in person, usually the payment is due when the person comes in for the reading. But if you're doing it over email, Skype, Zoom, one of those, phone, then sometimes people use scheduling software and they like to secure the payment ahead of time. Now, if you do that, if you use the scheduling software and the client is going to be paying ahead of time, what is your refund policy going to be? If they miss the appointment, do they lose out on their money, or will you give them, well, 1 no-show, but then the next one they have to keep, the next appointment, or they will lose their money? Because a word of caution and advice here, sometimes, and this is not the norm, I want to make that clear, but there are certain clients who will make an appointment and just be a no-show. They won't let you know they're not coming. They won't give you any ahead of time kind of a notice about it, or something came up. They just will be a no-show, call back, and then they'll want an appointment again. And some people will at times go through 1, 2, 3 missed appointments before they get to the appointment that they're actually going to keep. So that means that those are times that you could have scheduled in other clients. you're losing out on money. So do you want to have a policy that says you can cancel once? Because life happens. Sometimes there's a really usually there's a legitimate reason somebody can't make it. And most people are really good about it. So trust me, most people are not like this, but there are people who take advantage. So if they miss once, then they can take that money that they use to book the appointment and they can put it toward a future appointment. That's up to you. How you're going to handle that is going to be up to you, but know that that can be an issue that comes up sometimes. Another thing to keep in mind is how will people get in touch with you if they want to book a reading. So if you don't have a website and you don't have scheduling software where they could automatically just go in, choose a time, and make a payment, but they have to call you in order to schedule, do you want them to call? And if you do have them calling, have a separate line. Definitely get a separate line that they can get in touch with you on, or have them email you. That might work for you. The reason you need a separate line, years ago I had a website and I had people calling for readings. It becomes a problem because people will call you at all hours of the day and night. So to want an emergency reading if they broke up with their boyfriend or girlfriend, and you have to have a line that you can turn off that is not going to interfere with your day-to-day life. That's just for business, and that line is only on during your business hours. They can leave messages, but you'd be surprised how many people call and leave a lot of messages. So perhaps a phone isn't the best way to do it, but if that's the only way you have to do it, otherwise emailing and scheduling software might be a better option. And a great way to get the word out that you're ready to do readings now professionally is social media. You are so fortunate to have social media. We didn't have it the way we have it today, back when I was starting. And it's free. It's a free way to get it out there that you're ready to do readings. Facebook, Instagram, SD, Pinterest. You can use those sites for free and advertise your services on those sites. Now, a word of advice here: if you are going to use social media, make sure that you have a page that is strictly about your business, and don't mix your personal account with the account that you're using for doing readings. Keep them separate. And if you're thinking of doing a website, websites are good if you have already built a good clientele. Websites cost money, and you have to find a way to drive business to the website. That's what makes it a bit different than social media. It's easier to be seen on social media, and it's more difficult for people to find your website. They have to know about you to find you, kind of thing. So if you are going to do a website, you might want to hold off a bit until you have built a clientele. And if you prefer to do a reading in person with someone, but you're really not crazy about the idea of having strangers in your home, then visit your local cafe, coffee shop, hairdressers, and go into those establishments and ask them if they would like to have someone who does readings for an afternoon, and make an arrangement with them or an agreement with them. You can also just ask the person who wants the reading to meet you in the coffee shop, or to meet you in a restaurant or a diner. You don't have to bring them into your home if you're not comfortable with that. Find a place that's suitable for both of you, that will give you some amount of privacy, and you can meet them in a public space like a cafe or a coffee shop. And what if you'd prefer to be doing readings in a place like EarthSpirit New Age Center? Well, most metaphysical establishments that offer psychic readings like to have someone on board that they can ensure the quality of the readings and also the experience that the reader has. So they will ask you where you've read before, how long you've been reading. If you're starting out new, it may be more difficult. I'm not saying impossible, but it may be more difficult to get a position in a store like that. But they usually prefer to have somebody who has some experience under their belt. The way that I got a job at EarthSpirit was a process and a journey. Like you, I started out teaching myself the tarot. I started reading for friends. I would take my cards with me because I was dying to read for people all the time. Once I learned, once I was taught, once I taught myself, I took my cards with me to diners and I would sit down and have a meal. And then after the meal, I would take my cards out and I would pretend to do a reading for myself. I would do that in coffee shops, cafes. Always, always, there's someone around who's going to see your reading cards. And always, it never disappointed me. Someone would come over and look at the cards and, oh, you read cards? Oh, could you give me a reading? Have a seat. And I would sit and give them a free reading. And it was great experience being able to read for people, for members of the public. And everybody's so different and everybody's so unique and their stories are all so unique. To be able to get that experience, reading people I don't know, was very helpful to me in gaining the experience I needed and learning to trust what I was being shown by Spirit and what I was hearing with Spirit. So I did that for maybe a year or so on my own. And then there was a crystal store that opened up near where I used to live, and north of where I'm living now. And I started going into that crystal shop. And I got to know the young man who was behind the counter managing the store. And over time, over the course of a couple of weekends, I talking to him, and yeah, I was in there all the time. It was closer than EarthSpirit at the time, so I was in there every weekend, but I was also trying to get to know this guy. And I just was talking to him, getting to know him, and I finally one day said, you know, this is such a great shop. Would you like a reader here? And he decided to talk to the owner. They just happened to be having an open house that was coming up in a weekend or two from when I asked. And the owner called me and said, well, if you want to do readings during that open house. And I was so desperate to prove that I could do the readings and that I would be good in that space that I said, I will do that open house. I will do readings for anyone who purchases any kind of a purchase. There was no money limit on it. I'll give them a free 10-minute reading. I spent 5-6 hours that day doing readings for all these people. And at the end of the 5 or 6 hours, they had to turn people away. But it gave me the experience I needed. It proved to the shop owner that I could do readings because the people were coming out and having good things to say about me. So I got a job there. I worked there on the weekends every Saturday for about 9 months or so, I think, 9 months to a year, something like that. And then I moved to Red Bank and I got a job with EarthSpirit. I moved to Red Bank. I heard them talking to me saying, go to EarthSpirit, go to EarthSpirit. And I thought, they'll never offer me a job. And I walked in, and that day I walked out knowing that I had a job at EarthSpirit. But it was a journey that took me a couple of years to get there. But you have to start somewhere. And it really is important that you learn how to deal with people who are not family and not friends, because you are going to be reading for people, if you go professional, from every walk of life, every age group. I mean, you're going to meet people with such unique circumstances and different attitudes and different energies, and you need to be able to confidently give a reading for people and feel comfortable regardless of what energies they're bringing in. And you're only going to get that experience if you put yourself out there and start somewhere. So if you do go on social media to start trying to build a clientele, you might want to just offer people a free 5-minute reading. And then if they like you, they can book a session, like one free 5-minute reading per person, that kind of thing. Then if they like you, and if you feel confident enough with your abilities, that 5-minute reading, if it's good, should hook them in and should let them see, oh, look, she knows what she's talking about. She's good. And tell them, well, then these are the reading times and prices I offer. What would you like? 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes? So offer your services for free. Don't be afraid to do that at first, because if people don't know you, why would they pay you? And if you're not within an establishment, if you're in an establishment, then they know that you must have some credibility. Otherwise, they don't know who you are. They don't know what your credibility is. So Start building your credibility. Go online and start offering free readings, or go to those coffee shops and offer. I would actually say stick to doing it online. You'll have greater coverage, you'll have a greater exposure probably online. But start getting that experience and start feeling confident that you could read anybody. That does help. And start learning how to deal with different types of personalities. You're going to need that. Trust me, it's going to come in handy when you're a professional reader. But it doesn't take that long. I did a year of that, and then I got a job at a place up closer to where I lived, that crystal shop, and I've been at EarthSpirit now for, it'll be 11 years this spring, like May, I think, is 11 years. So, and this is the end of March, so I'm almost there 11 years. Be patient with yourself. Look for creative ways to read for others. I definitely would recommend you explore reading for others outside of your family and total strangers. It does make a difference. So don't be shy. Start getting on that social media. Start advertising your services. And you'll be surprised at how quickly you start gaining a following if you're really good at what you do. And it will help you gain confidence. It really will. And it will also, another side note, it will help to open your psychic abilities in ways you wouldn't imagine. When you read people you don't know and you start getting information you absolutely could not know, and they confirm what you're telling them and validate it, it really does boost your confidence, and it really does help you to open up even further. So I definitely recommend you get out of your comfort zone, get on social media, start advertising your services, and you'll be surprised how quickly your business will grow. I hope that information was helpful for you. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave it in the comments section below. I do see those comments, and I promise you I will respond to your comments or questions. If you'd like to get a reading with me, you can get a reading with me in person at EarthSpirit New Age Center or over the phone, whichever is more convenient for you. Just contact the store to set up the appointment. Their phone number is on the screen, and they will set up an appointment time for you. If you want to connect with me on social media, the links are below in the description box. And as always, remember, you are a spark of the divine. Share your light with the world. Blessings.